Very good morning to all the participants and delegates. My name is Divya. I'm clinical psychologist, and I welcome you all in day two of our fifth international conference. Moving ahead in today's session, it is my honor to introduce our next speaker, Professor Raza A sir, from William Paterson University, United States of America. Sir is Professor of Management at William Paterson University in New Jersey, USA. He has received William Paterson University Award for Outstanding Scholarship in May 2008 and Beta Gamma Sigma Award for Best Teacher, School of Business Administration, Monmouth University in 2001. He is the editor of 10 books, the last of which was published on the topic Philosophy and Management Studies, a research overview. Sir would be speaking on the topic Strategic Solutions for Global Economic Equity and Inclusion. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rai, and it was a real pleasure to listen to Dr. Professor Trivedi. I would like to, yes, I have the option of sharing my screen. I would like to share my screen. I did debate on what my topic would be, and then I thought that I'm speaking to a group of psychologists. I've been speaking at this conference for the past 4 years now, and every time I feel a bit like a gate crasher, because you people are really speaking at the level of individuals. I'm trained as a economist, but your colleague Dr. Sajid Kazmi gives me the command, and I do come. So here I am again. So I thought I would just make certain connections. I do know that we are probably running a little bit late. So what I will do is that I will I'll try to give back about 5-7 minutes. So maybe I will speak, I will time myself, and I will speak for the next fewer than 20 minutes, and then I will open it up to questions so that we can have some of the time back.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, sir, but we have 30 to 35 minutes. You can utilize the whole time.
Oh, okay. All right. That is wonderful. That is great.
Sir.
So I was thinking to myself as I was talking to you that what is the linkage between an economist's presentation and a psychologist's preoccupation? And I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about this because I think it is really very important. You folks as psychologists, like I said here, for example, struggle to control the adversarial behavioral impact of technology. In other words, for example, social media, what it does, both at the neurological level and at the personal psychological level. As a professor, I deal with students who are increasingly lonely and isolated, and some of the blame of that, I do not know whether there is a correlation or a causality, but some of that can be put at the new technological arena that we have entered. The thing about the new technological arena is that as economists or as people in business schools, we are always conditioned to think about products. There's this product and there's that product, and what's the difference between the two products, and so on and so forth. Of late, what has happened is that the product is not really as important as the platform. For example, if you have a phone, the brand of your phone is relatively unimportant compared to the operating system that it uses. So if you're using a phone with an Android operating system, then chances are very high that you will do a lot of things that are dictated by the corporation, in this case, Alphabet Corporation, Google, which controls Android. So you will do a lot of purchasing using the Google Play Store. You will, play games using that. You will use your maps and so on and so forth. So those who control the platform really are in a greater position to control the game than those who make individual products. Now, the platforms are being controlled by a few players, and I'll come to that in a couple of slides. Those corporations are so big, and they are able to leverage all new ways in which they can make money. And the fact that there might be socially or individually, psychologically adverse effects uh, does not appear to be that much of a concern for them. And therein lies the problem. Also, the problem that the corporations are so big then that individual governments find it very difficult to control them. Of late, there have been two or three very important legal battles that have been going on. The United States government has essentially filed a case against Google Corporation, that's Alphabet, accusing it of anti-competitive and monopolistic behavior. And likewise, Microsoft Corporation, which was buying up a big video game company called Activision, the company that makes things like Candy Crush and Call of Duty. So they are all why are they spending that kind of money, more than $100 billion, which translates to, I think, what, 8,000, 9,000 crores. Why are they spending this kind of money? Why is Microsoft interested in buying that? They're essentially cutting out the corporation and making sure that they own the platforms from which people either work or play or spend money or utilize services. So if you, as a psychologist, are really concerned about this, you may feel extremely powerless to control the initial conditions that cause that behavior. I said I'll give an example of sports betting, and I'll just speak about it for a few minutes. The Cricket World Cup, for example, is going on right now. And I remember that when we used to follow cricket, at that time, people would bet on a few things like, who won the game and who didn't win the game. In India, gambling was for the most part illegal. And so it was a, illegal operation using bookies and so on and so forth. And then, of course, there was this whole corruption scandals involving cricket. And one of the things they would talk about would be something called spot fixing or spot betting or something like that. And I never really understood how people did that. People would bet on which batsman would get out first or what point in time a four would be hit. And I'm like, how do they actually communicate so fast that they can place the bet before the ball is delivered or before the over is completed? Now the game is entirely different. I will give you an example of the United States. And I was concerned about, now no one, by the way, calls it gambling in the United States. They call it sports betting. So I was really concerned that my students, who are essentially people in their early 20s, technically adults, but not really developed enough. So why are they being allowed to bet? But more importantly, what are they betting on? So I went and I asked one of my friends, one of my students, to show me how they do the betting. Now, you would not believe this. And I think that Professor Tiwari also was talking about artificial intelligence. Now, let us say the 5 games are going on simultaneously. You can pick on 2 outcomes from one game, 2 outcomes from another game, and then create 10 outcomes. Who will score how many points, and who will, what would be the margin of, the victory. and you essentially create a package, your own personal package. I am placing the following 5 bets, and you propose that, and there's a machine there. There's some kind of an AI platform which immediately processes that information and offers you a bet. That if you bet $1, and if all 5 of those things happen, they'll give you whatever, $14 back. So these, for want of a better word, these kids, they are, before the games start, they just place a $5 bet. This is a slippery slope that turns an entire generation into gamblers. And this is possible with an app. And of course, a company makes the app. There are a lot of gambling companies, there are a lot of sort of sports betting companies that provide the app, but you access the app using your operating system of your phone. It is entirely seamless. You use your thumbs to place the bet. Now, before you know it, you psychologists, mental health professionals will unfortunately encounter an epidemic of gambling. And we as economists need to make that connection. If we don't make that connection, then we are in a lot of trouble. So I just wanted to flag that as the kind of point which I mean, it's really the fundamental point that I want to make, and I'll make it in a couple of different ways, but during the course of this talk. Like I just said, there are huge corporate mergers. And the fact of the matter is that the private sector does not have a point. They are like, because of us, a lot of innovation has happened. And it is very doubtful that a government or governments acting together would have produced those kind of innovations at that kind of scale and at that kind of speed. So they are like, let us do our job. And if in the process we make a lot of money, that's all right. That's all right, because ultimately society benefits, we make money, and it's a win-win situation. But the fact of the matter is that it produces very, very difficult to sustain inequalities in society. Who controls and who doesn't control? And even if you are a small firm who is trying to do innovation, unless you are one of these 7 companies that I have listed here, you find it very, very difficult to get above the water. And these companies are the companies that really control the platforms. Netflix is a platform. Meta is a platform. And while Tesla is really a product company, it is owned by, for the most part, by Elon Musk, who has, as purchased Twitter with his own money. So all these are platform-based companies that are affecting social discourse and mental health issues in ways that we have not even begun to understand. And the one more point that I want to make is that because the corporations in particular are not controllable, then they define their efficiency very differently, right? So their efficiency is really about how much money we make, how many products we create. But if at a macro level, what we are seeing is that an unsustainable burden is being placed on the planet. And, climate change itself produces so many mental health crises, particularly in this part of the world. I'm sure it's the same there too. You feel that you are drowning in plastic and things like that. And actually, it produces all kinds of problems. The circular flow of economy, as defined by these corporations, is like this, that, it's a nice little neat thing that things go in, things go out, everything is sustained and balanced. But the reality is that it's not really circular, because a lot more resources are going in. Many of these resources are things that we really owe to future generations. We're just becoming dangerously efficient in terms of taking things out of the environment. And again, economists need to look at that and work in consultation with psychologists to develop ways to deal with this problem. Now, the competitive landscape, as I mentioned it, and this really affects every profession, is dominated by three elements. The first is globalization, and therefore you make things wherever you like, you sell things wherever you like, you increase your markets, but more importantly, the globalization then produces a form of governance where multinational corporations who are spread out across countries have the advantage. What can the US do? What can India do? What can Europe do? And forget the smaller countries, what can they do to stop these countries is a very important and a difficult challenge. Along with that is all these forms of technology that allow you to produce, transport, communicate, and scale up your operations very quickly. Now, what this leads to is imbalances in justice, and therefore we really need to understand that at the policy level and then deal with the effects of that at the individual level. And that is where economists and psychologists can talk to each other. So I've just produced a very simple graphic of socio-technical change here that, any new technology that comes into the market starts off very slowly. At some point in time, if there is, adoption, then it really increases its trajectory of usage. And then, of course, the mechanisms, the regulatory mechanisms, find it very difficult to catch up to it in this period of accelerated growth. We are increasingly seeing this right now in the case of AI. Simple things like, first of all, students using ChatGPT to cheat on assignments is a big problem for me as a teacher. But more importantly, first of all, what does AI do? It allows you to use it very effectively to solve a lot of organizational problems. So the more you learn it, the more you will like it. The more you like it, the more you will adopt it. And the more you adopt it, then the more its positive and negative effects become very apparent in society. So what we have seen, for example, is that in the larger macroeconomic environment, there are cycles of prosperity, but then let me just go one step down, and here you see it, that every 50 years, people have seen this guy called Kondratiev. He proposed this, that every 50 years, the technology really, really booms and it produces all kinds of positivities. But then at some point in time, new technology is coming in, the old technology is not keeping up. And so what we see is the booms and bust cycle. We are right now still at the boom level in the fifth Kondratiev, but at some point in time, people are predicting that, this is exactly what I'm talking about, that the forces of production and the forces of regulation are not in equilibrium right now. As a result of that, we may find ourselves dealing with more problems than we can handle at the planetary level, at the individual level, and also at the economic level. So we really have to be very sure what will happen once all these technologies. I mean, we as a society need to understand how to handle these technologies better. uh, two sets of technologies. I can add a lot of other technologies, transportation and R&D and medical and so on and so forth. But these two technologies, ICTs, they are called information and communication technologies, are producing a tremendous amount of convergence in our time. That, earlier there was this communication technology, how you talk to each other, how you communicated with each other, how you consumed information. Maybe there was radio and TV and so on and so forth. But there's information technology on the other side, which is the computer side of it. Chips. How fast can chips be? How cheap can instruments of technological usage, whether it's a computer or a phone, can be. And there's been a convergence between the information and the communication technologies. And so what we are seeing is the rapid emergence of quote unquote ICTs. And those are the ones that are spearheading many of the innovations. At the hardware level, there's an exponential increase in the capacity of microprocessors. So you all know that, the phones that we carry, the smartphones that we carry, have more processing power than the supercomputers of 30 years ago used to have. And we just take that for granted, that there is no limit to this. But there are other physical limits to it, particularly the input elements, all the rare earths and all the sort of manufacturing elements that are needed to produce these instruments. They have a very finite availability. And so we are going to see constraints relating to that in the future. This is just a representational diagram which says that, earlier the world seemed like a very large place. If you were in one part of the world and somebody else was in another part of the world, then of course it was very difficult to communicate. It was very difficult to live in, to imagine yourself, inhabiting the same world. But here I am, in the middle of the night, talking to you in the morning, and we don't even think much about it other than, when do I have to go to bed, that sort of a thing. The fact that technology is enabling it, the fact that we can talk to each other so easily and seamlessly across geographies and also across, disciplines, is taken for granted. One does not know how, whether there's a limit to that shrinkage. So it is enabled by a variety of technologies. Here I just talked a little bit about the internet. And of course, in our part of the world, the usage is even growing even faster than other parts of the world. I just want to clarify that, other parts of the world may have per capita usage might be higher, but because Asia started off at a lower base, the growth rate is much higher. So the growth of internet. What we have seen, therefore, however, at the macro level is, first of all, there's a lost linkage between economic performance and financial capital. What does that mean? It means whether a company is doing something, making products, making even profits, is not as important as what is its share price? How is it traded in the market? Are people buying its options and futures? So that this linkage, a few slides ago, I had talked about the 7 companies that are dominating the financial marketplace. So if there's any investment that's coming in, it's going out there. And as a result of that, capitalism promised us that there would be competition, and competition would produce efficiencies and so on and so forth. But now we are slowly seeing these big cartels coming who are pretty much, strongly controlling the ability to move the agenda. And so I think that we need to be ready for this new world. And at the tail end, I would like to say is that, I mean, this is something I've been telling my students that in the end, it's not just about, it's not, I mean, you as professionals might be talking to your patients. It's not really about the hard skills. You really have to work on developing these soft skills. And I have identified five of them. And you can you can have more, but I think these five are very important. Social intelligence, that is the ability to connect to others in deep and direct ways. This cross-cultural competence, that is, don't worry about your own context, be empathetic and be mindful and be knowledgeable about other people's contexts. Uh, and then, but at the same time, your mind should be able to kind of deal with data and understand what it means to have research and how, things connect to each other at a data level. And then, of course, there's new media literacy. We are slowly moving. I mean, it's no longer that whole print media and books and libraries and that sort of thing, right? People are essentially consuming information, knowledge, and even wisdom using very different kinds of uh, modes. And we need to understand that, and we really need to be ready for that. It's not enough to say, no, in our time it was different. Well, these are very real changes, and we need to understand that. And finally, we are constantly being bombarded with information and with data, and we really need to prioritize. We need to work. We need to balance between the production and consumption of knowledge. And in order to help people do that, I think that is where the economists and the psychologists can speak to each other very well. With that, I will end my talk, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your insight and expertise on this important topic. We are really grateful for you for sparing your time. I am expressing my gratitude from on behalf of Sajid as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Any questions, do participants? Think so. There are no questions. Thank you.